recent interview questions?
What I say?
Was that email of the recent interview questions you sent us?
No, I'm still to send this one. I've not sent that one. This one out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm saying everything you see in yellow are emphasis that you need to, you know, you need to take note of. The other things, just read them for knowledge purpose. Nobody's gonna ask you what is a subnet map. They may ask for these. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's resolved. This is where DNS is resolved. Very important. And then I need to yellow that and green that also. So let's take note of that. So I'm gonna send these questions out. It's just for you guys to review, especially when it comes to networking. Assigning static IP, you don't need to go and start looking for all these steps, blah, blah, blah. No, just understand the concept and be able to explain to somebody that with static IP, one of the reasons is to make sure that we don't have IP conflicts. More than one IP should not be assigned to, one system. It shows you in Red Hat 6 and in Red Hat 7. Red Hat 7 is very important. The commands you use. So know these commands. Network Manager CLI. Yeah, make sure you recall those commands. You can use them and mention them when it comes to troubleshooting. Pink, pink, pink too is very important to mention that you can use pink to check if an IP address is on the network. It's active, is responding, 5 packet sent, 5 packet received. We all can interpret that, correct? What are the difference between dynamic and static configuration? Dynamic changes, static remains the same.
That's true.
How to troubleshoot if NIC is not working. So these are big steps through which, during interviews, they'll like to hear your approach. First of all, it says, first check the NIC. Do we know what is a NIC?
Yes. Network interface card.
Perfect. You remember in all your laptops, if you have the Ethernet cable, the hole where you plug your Ethernet cable to have internet connection. Most of us are using Wi-Fi, but if you have to use a cable, there's a place where you plug the cable, correct?
Yes, bro.
That hardware port, that's what they call NIC.
Okay.
If you open an old laptop and you go to that place where you see that cable coming, it's actually a hardware that follows inside. Let's look for a picture of a NIC, you'll see it.
In Linux, isn't there like a directory like etc sysconfig, like network scripts? Isn't that where you look for the NIC within the
uh,
server?
no, those are just command line and locations. Okay, perfect.
Oh,
You see,
okay.
can you see a NIC right here?
Yes.
So you see where we put the cable, right, from outside. Can everybody see where my cursor is?
Yes, I can see it.
But this is the card itself at the back end. This is what is inside the computer that nobody sees. Everybody just sees that you plug a cable inside this port, but this is what follows at the back end of a NIC. Does that make sense? So it's actually hardware where you can remove and then play with it and stuff like that. Hi, Miss Kenko, you're welcome.
Thank you.
So with what I'm sharing, I'm going to send out this document. He explains how to troubleshoot networking. And as I said, you don't need to cram these, just understand the concept. Write about 4 lines. If you are asked, those are the 4 lines you mentioned. Mention the commands that you use. CM, CLI, very important for Red Hat 7. And then, if config for Red Hat 6. You must be able to, it is advantageous when you differentiate your conversation, let them know that you can function in both Red Hat 6 and 7. 8 is still very lightly used. 6 and 7 is what you need to master. Any question up to this point? What's the difference between TCP and UDP? You'll find it there. This question is frequently asked, especially if that position is going to deal with some form of networking.
TCP is reliable, UDP is not reliable.
Correct.
With TCP, you have feedback. With this UDP, you don't have feedback. It's a one-way. Yeah, so.
Yeah, those are the kind of response they need.
Yes, sir.
TCP is slower than UDP to its error checking mechanism because TCP will check whether there's an error before it sends out the message. UDP will just move the message without checking whether it's right or not right. So read through this and it will help you a lot. Yeah, so these are all the questions I've gone through and enlightened. What is a three-way handshake protocol? Give an example. It's very important also. I think we need to treat this. It used to come in interviews, but these days they've modernized the question. They'll ask you what will happen if you open a browser and you type google.com. Explain that process. So we'll treat that. This is a very good scenario too. How to troubleshoot if a network is not the network is not reachable. You can reach an IP address. So last week we spoke and we said this week we're gonna do a parole. You know, how do you troubleshoot scenarios whereby a user cannot log in? They could log in yesterday and today they call and they say they can't log in again. Who can give us a short briefing on how you tackle that scenario? Number one, yes, go ahead.
So you taught us two scenario. First of all, to check if the user asks question to the user. If the user is newly employed, first of all, you check about if it's in the system. You have to go and check in the configuration file. If the user is in the system, then you ask if she was newly hired. If she was newly hired, then it might be a problem of password. The user need to probably reset their password because in every company, I believe that there's always a password policy. When somebody join newly, they need to reset their password. The other scenario was about probably they might have a network issue. So also check their network and see if their network is on. They should use a browser and see if they're being connected. If not, then that's where you begin to narrow down your search. So that's just briefly what you said last week.
All right, good. Who else has something to add to that or their own version?
If I get a scenario where someone cannot connect to the network, first I will try to see if I can connect, log in using their username and password if they have one. If I can log in, then I will conclude that maybe it's coming from their end, and then I'll have them to troubleshoot their network by going to another website to see if it's connected. If it's connected, then if it's not connected, then that's a problem that she can call her service provider. Or if it is connected, then I'm going to assume that there's something wrong. It's wrong with the server. And then I'll check other servers to make sure it's not a global thing. Yeah, that's
a good scenario. I like that presentation. You know, fully well, because these are the kind of conversations recruiters are complaining now, that they have good resumes out there, but when it comes to talking, the candidates cannot talk. You know, so with these kind of scenarios, it's important because you give them a feeling that you understand all what is going around. You understand that this user cannot connect. However, they have internet connection in their area. The next thing you should be thinking that should prevent them from logging into the system is the VPN. You know, have they check if they are logging to the VPN also? Majority of the time, that's the scenario. So you must make sure you build all of that and then bring them to the fact that, okay, How about if you yourself cannot log into that server? Because what Eunice just explained to us was that she could log in, correct?
Yes.
So now you cannot log into that server. What will be the second batch?
It means that let me think.
So in that scenario, what will you present? Go ahead.
I'll check the other servers to see if they're running. So if I try to check as the system admin and I can't log in, well, first I'll ask if they have changed their password, if that came up, or even if they have permission to be to even be in the system. Once that's checked out, then I will assume that it's the network, and I'll check the other servers to see if the service is running, by also making sure to ping the IP address and to see if we're getting package receive. If that's not working, then make sure that someone at the data center, it's checking the Ethernet cable to make sure that it's properly plugged and ready to go in that department.
Good. So yes, that's the right thing to do. And as I said, no two environments are the same. However, let them hear you say some sense in what you're explaining, and they should know that yes, this is someone who at least can troubleshoot and find out what is the root cause of several scenarios. So last week we said we're going to talk about troubleshooting. We discussed server access, and this week we are talking network connectivity, which is also brings us to this point whereby, for example, the server cannot be reached. You check the IP address, you ping that IP address, and from the output, you should determine whether there's connectivity between yourself and that IP which you're trying to reach. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So when I send out this document, please go through, the things I have marked in green and yellow are things that you need to lay emphasis on. Just read the others for knowledge base, but those things in green and yellow are possible interview questions. So you want to be able to be strong on your networking and be able to, and there's one very easy and nice one here that comes more often. Which command will you use to make a service persistent across reboot? For example, HTTPD service, if you want such that whenever you reboot the system, that daemon should still be running.
Check config.
Perfect. Check config. They always bring up that when they're discussing networking equations. So you have all of those is here. This check config list for you to see services in there should be a place where you use check config on. You should be able to find it among. I thought I highlighted it.
Do a control find.
My control find here. Let's see this in this document. I got yes. To check config list, yeah. See, only these two check config lists.
We have 9 of them.
Yeah, this is it. Check config network on. This is the one I was trying to lay an emphasis on. Yeah, so please take note of that. It's very important. And if you see right here, yes, they use it right here to enable connection at the next reboot. So whenever you reboot, that connectivity will still remain. They did it for Red Hat 6, and then for Red Hat 7, they use systemctl. So these are the two commands differences when it comes to Red Hat 6 and Red Hat 7. Very important. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm going to send out this document for network connectivity, and we'll make use of those emphasis. Tonight, we're going to, okay, there's another document here. You guys received this one already. Is that true?
Yes.
Take a look again and confirm. Have you guys received this document?
This is like 250 questions, 36 page.
Let me scroll to the bottom.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we've got it.
These questions were 250. That's a lot.
Yeah, we have it.
Okay. Yeah, we'll need to do scripting. So we'll do scripting on Sundays after we finish interview preps. That way, yeah, we can. We'll also do Ansible on Sundays after interview preps, while we continue AWS on Wednesdays. So you guys have this one. Okay, how about this one? Let me bring it. No, you guys don't have this from the beginning. So this is the final document. However, there's some things here you need to ignore, like, tell us about yourself. You don't need all of these educational details. I don't know whether I should delete them. Every other thing matches what we have been discussing about. And also there are some questions here which are important when it comes to Veritas. We're going to discuss that. And these are some of the difficulties some students have faced. So I've responded to those questions, highlighted them in yellow. Total team members, we always use 14, but yeah, we are using 18, so we stick on 14. Israel, does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, good. And then what else again here? Good. This document explains severity. Severity is how much critical is a scenario or a situation. When we talk about when we're going to discuss vulnerability, what did we say vulnerability last week is?
How
It's when your
easily?
system is susceptible to cyber attacks.
Can you repeat that?
It's when your system is susceptible to cyber attacks.
Okay, yes. When your system is susceptible to cyber attacks, those loopholes that are available that can be used or make use of what we refer to as vulnerabilities. So when we talk about ticketing, what comes to your mind?
The system used I don't know, the system used that we use at work to be able to, I guess, address different concern.
Correct. For example, we as system engineers don't use the tickets because we don't open tickets we don't report anything for anybody to resolve for us. We resolve everything for others. So they are the ones that use the ticketing tool, but we need to know, for example, ServiceNow. So people who do not, for example, the user who does not have access to a server will not call you on the phone or send you an email if a ticketing tool is existing. They can only do that in an environment where there's no ticketing tool in existence. Does that make sense? But if this tool is existent, they'll go to this tool and then they'll click create an incident. And then you have category, you may say cannot log in to this server 02. And this is my username. And you click submit. And that tool will automatically reroute that ticket to us system admins because that's what we do. We resolve those issues. Does that make sense? So
Yes.
so one of the things that we'll be asking you is what ticketing tool are you familiar with or are you used to? We said ServiceNow
ServiceNow Remedy.
and Remedy. So this question is, the next question that will follow is how frequent in your environment that you see you're coming from Dynamic Tech, what's the frequency of tickets that you guys handle per day? This question will help them determine what's the capacity of the company you're working with. If you're resolving 20 tickets, that tells them that that's a busy shop. So our response here is 7 to 8 tickets daily, maximum 10 per day. In those, 85% are CPU utilizations full, memory full, file system full, login problems, and sometimes note down issues. Who can explain this sentence to us? This is the whole issue about Linux. This is our bread and butter on a daily basis.
Yeah. So within the tickets in those 85 to 95% of CPU. So dealing with checking the CPU and resolving
Perfect. So they're
the
saying
CPU.
upon all these tickets, 85 to 90%, the problem that come in is CPU is 100%. CPU is hitting maximum, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So they'll ask you, so how will you resolve as a system admin? If you receive this ticket and they say CPU is being maximized, where will you start? Which command will you use? Let's start with CPU.
I see.
LS CPU.
I see.
Perfect. First of all, you want to run and see the number of CPU that the system is having. And before you know, you run and you see 2. And that's a poor system. So number 2 is you definitely say that we need to increase the CPU. And next is memory. Which command will you use run to see memory?
Free memory.
Perfect. File system full. Which command will you run to see?
DF-H.
Perfect. Login problem, just like what we just narrated. User cannot log in. And sometimes a note down issue. What do you understand by note down? What is a note?
Is it
Note.
I can hear you.
Is it network?
Note down issue. Yes, it's network issue, but break it down for me. Excuse me. What is a node? Remember day one, there were some things we were saying. A node is a node. There was a system. There was a definition that we brought in the node into it during your first week. A host name. What that unique name that represents a node on network. Who remembers that? What's a host name? If you define that, then node will come in your definition.
It's a unique number that
identifies
every
system was one.
System.
And then we'll say /node, which means system and node is the same thing, correct? So if they say node is down, we are indirectly saying system is down. So what are we referring to as system?
The servers is down.
Service or
servers?
Server, correct. A node is a server. Perfect. That's what I wanted to hear. So when they said they also receive issues about the server is down, which means they're trying to ping the IP and cannot be reachable. 5%, 5 package sent and 0 receive. Does that make sense? Now, how do you troubleshoot that?
First, you start by pinging.
Perfect.
IP.
The same thing we just discussed when a user could not log in. Start by pinging other IPs down that same network. So if server 2 is down, I'm going to ping server 1 and ping server 3. If I cannot reach those 2 servers also, then I can now conclude that, oh, it's not more just a one server issue. This is a group of issues, group of servers that are down. However, if I could reach server 1 and I can reach server 3, then I cannot reach server 2 only. That tells me that this is a unique issue to server 2 alone. And my next guess, because you can't do anything remotely, it must be physically present. Is that correct? However, with modern built servers, especially with IBM servers, what can we install when setting up a server so that we can remotely power them off and on?
iDRAC.
Correct, iDRAC. So those are the kind of things you want to use in your conversation. Even when it is not asked, especially when you're talking about they say a server is down, you have to let them know. One of the ways I'll troubleshoot this issue will depend how this server was built also. If this server was built with an iDRAC application, which is something that can help me to power on even remotely, then I can just log into iDRAC and power on that server if it is down. If not, then I need to be physically present to check to see if the Ethernet cable at the back end is out of place. Does that make sense? So our focus was general ticket severity. So severity, as I said, it depends on the critical scenario of any ticket. Because when customers are opening those tickets, when users are opening the ticket, they will ask them to categorize their issues. You have 71, 72, 73. So if you look here, should be 71 is the highest. It should be resolved within 1 hour, immediate. Does that make sense? Second level severity can be resolved within 6 hours. And then third level can go, more. That's medium. It's not too. It's a low issue. So this is what it is referring to here, and this goes with every ticketing tool. And when you're discussing ticketing, you must let them know, especially vulnerabilities. We have that which we are expected to resolve immediately. Those that may have to wait 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. We'll discuss that when it comes to when we discuss vulnerability. However, I want you guys to be able to discuss this when ticketing is mentioned, that it also depends what's the severity of this ticket. Because one question they're going to ask in this human resource is, how do you handle pressure? How do you handle, let's say you have multiple requests. You come in the morning, you have a ticket from the ticketing tool that's waiting for you to resolve. Your manager also have a task for you, and the customer is also seeking your attention. How will you classify these three needs? Depending on your response should be depending on their severity. So whatever classifications they use when they were opening, it will help you determine which one you should prioritize first. Severity 1 will always come first, then 2, and then 3. Does that make sense? Are we communicating? So yes, I'm going to send this document to you all, and then when you read through, it will help you. What is your notice period? 25 to 30 days when it comes to notifying a client issues that needs to be resolved. So there's no rush in regards to you must fix this now, except when it comes to ticketing. Are you a contract or permanent, and why are you changing? Permanent is limited. I'm looking a company that will provide high availability on cloud, virtualization, storage environment to enhance my knowledge and better career growth. We always use better career growth, and also you all can answer this, right? Is it common sense? Who can tell me? Is it easy? Okay, since we are doing interview preps, let me answer our question. So we usually use in search of new career, new opportunities, new exposure. You need new you want to expose yourself to new technologies. IT is always growing, so you have been with Dynamic Tech for this 6 to 8 years, and you think it's time to move on to some other ventures. Does that make sense? And you all are full-time. Nobody is part-time. So career growth and knowledge, to learn new things is the best response to give to this question. And for those of you with resumes, we need to add a line that describes your projects. What are the projects you are dealing with currently? So we need to add that to your resume. I'll send a sample. In fact, before your final resume, at the end of your of each experience, you should write projects and then list these projects. For example, LVM, you state that I was involved in a project whereby we need to rebuild servers that were poorly built. So we needed to add the disks and convert them to logical volumes. Full stop. NFS, we had users that needed to share between Unix and Linux environments. So I was in charge to set up an NFS shared directory across these two platforms. Full stop. Patching. Currently, I'm in charge of patching our whole environment. That happens on Monday for dev, Tuesday for test, and weekends for production. Server hardening. I think we have not discussed this, but you can add this to a project responsible to increase security of our servers after they have been configured. For example, making sure there's no root password, closing up every unnecessary ports that are open. And I think we should remove this and add Nagios, or we should load balancing. We have not done this yet. We'll do it with AWS, but we should add Nagios to this list. Very important. Nagios. Which other topic you guys have we discussed that you don't see here? Bootstrapping. Did we use bootstrapping as a topic? I don't remember. But with these 5, man, if you master these 5 and you can use them for
bootstrapping, Pro.
Use them for project you're working on, most difficult scenarios you have had, and also something you are proud of. We said you should have at least 3 projects of each which you can discuss fluently. Is that correct?
Yes.
Total number of
Yeah.
servers you're handling in your environment. This will always come up. So this is a very good document. What is your environment? So good. Development up to 10 servers. Quality and assurance, QA is what they call, is what is replacing test environment now. So when you see quality assurance, is just the, okay, it's clearly stated here, quality testing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So don't go to an environment and you see QA and you say, what's the difference? It's just another name for a test environment. So universally, there are always 3, dev, test, and prod. Some companies will have other things in between, but basically know that everything runs between these 3 environments. And that's what we should. So some people have, after test, they have pre-prod, which is before prod. You know, so all of that are just simple, the same meaning. You just need to understand the concept. Any question up to this point? How to handle the shift. So sometimes I want to find out from you guys, are you doing night shift? Are you used to night shift, evening shift, or so? Very importantly is for you to state your availability and call rotation. Call rotation means you just like nurses. Nurses do have call rotation, right? You come for this shift, somebody takes over from you from this other shift.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, we run 24/7. How to hand over the shift. So how do you hand over when you come for your shift? Is it through mail or direct to a client?
Do like stand up every morning? I mean, every state, I mean, shift change?
For shifts that run 24/7, for example, morning, afternoon, night shift, there's always that stand up, as you rightly said. Hand over what the tickets that there's always a meeting. Yes, that's correct. So we do direct to reliever. So you talk directly to whoever is relieving you, and you pass off every other task and stuff like that. That may concern that, especially when it comes to bridges. Did we discuss what is a bridge?
No.
All right. Well, everybody should write that down. A bridge is a group phone call that involves every department when it comes to resolving critical issues. So, for example, the whole data center is down. You can't log into any server. A bridge it will be called, which means something like a Zoom link or a phone number will be dialed, and every department will be invited onto that call. Usually like 100 people. Databases, there, cybersecurity, system engineering, system admin, network managers, executives, everybody on that call. That issue must be resolved today. Does that make sense? So you may see some job description, then they'll ask you what's your experience with handling a breach. Now, you're not the one, usually engineers are the people involved with those high level issues, but you must be present, because while they are working, they may say, Eunice, can you ping the server and see what's the level of connectivity we have now? So they share the tasks. Some people are pinging, some people are checking disk space, some people are calling, trying to create ticket with vendor. Yes, so everybody is busy on that call, putting your heads together, trying to resolve the issue. We say that is a breach. Does that make sense? So you see server hardening. You guys just need to read that for understanding. What are decommissioning and recommissioning? You need to read this also. Very important. It may come up just as a conversation, but it's good you have that knowledge. Explain backup and what is backup policy. Very important. We discussed that in our last 2 interview preps. And we said we are now including this when it comes to describing our environment. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when you describe your environment, you talk about, we have the dev, test, and prod. The dev is patched during the week. The test also during the week. The prod is reserved for weekends. Our dev server is open for everyone. Everybody have access. Dev is still, test is also open for everyone, but we read access only. Production is very restricted, only available for system admins. Our backup policy stipulates that we back up full or incremental. Those are the 2 kinds of backup we use. Full means everything is backup. This usually happens on Fridays on our production servers, while incremental is backing up only those things that have changed from the last full backups. That's a short summary, correct? So read through all of these. Don't waste too much time. They just understand, the basic concept. In that way, you can have a conversation when it comes to complete full backup recovery, incremental. And some people also ask differential, cumulative, every week, and that's when that runs. But we're going to discuss backup a little bit more when we talk about disaster recovery next week, because we need to tackle some questions because at the end of the interview, the interviewer will ask you, do you have any question for us? We need to frame a professional question that you need to ask them. You don't go and start asking them about, how much are they going to pay you, or when are you going to start? How to troubleshoot if a file system is full. This is important also. Read and master that. Ms. Kenko, did you guys have this document?
No.
You guys did. You never say yes. We'll still send it to you guys again.
We did not have this document. We had 250. Is that
You had, they are all brothers and sisters. One cannot come and leave the other one.
Oh, okay.
CPU utilization for how to troubleshoot. Okay, good. So this document explains that how to trouble, but you don't need to, explain all of this. You just need to get the basics. For example, you see this document starts to explain that normally we'll get this scenario, on weekends, because backup team will take heavy backups. When backups are running, they consume a lot of CPU. The first check which process are using more CPU utilization by the top command and take a snapshot. So when you run the top command, you see all processes running, right? And we can look from the column CPU consumption. Anybody remembers that?
Yeah.
Now, if those processes are backup, then inform to backup team to reduce the
Yes.
backup. However, if those processes are not important processes that needs to be running, means we need to kill them. Make sense? So go through this document, and you don't need to wait for this question to come up during interviews. They may any troubleshooting issue that they brings, and they say, okay, they may ask you and say, if your server is slow, what will you start up troubleshooting? In fact, that's a whole topic that we use. I need to include this CPU utilization for how to troubleshoot. Also, it's acting slow. Very important. In fact, let me make this red because it will always come up. So when a server is acting slow, the first thing is to check CPU utilization, memory utilization. In fact, all the resources, CPU, memory, then disk space. Does that make sense? It's the same thing you see how to troubleshoot when the system is slow. So they still bring up CPU, memory utilization. So that question over there continues below here. When it comes to knowledge base, that will help you in regards to how to troubleshoot. If you note this down, we have discussed this. Start by pinking and pinking others at the data center. So everything in green are things that I'm laying emphasis on saying you must make sure you master those and every other thing here. What is your role in DB patching? They will not ask you this, but it will just help you to understand how we interact with database guides. Monitoring team, Linux team is here. You see our role. Monitoring team is still us. Application team is still us, and all of that good stuff. What is an LSA? So this is a rich document. Make use of it, and let me know if you guys have any question. Any question up to this moment? All right, so one more thing they will ask is, how do you troubleshoot an application? So we have an application running on the server. For example, let's say you build a Linux server. Now, if you install an application called Facebook, the name of that server changes from a Linux server to a Facebook server. So which means if you go somewhere and they tell you that that's our web server, they're simply telling you that the application running there is called web. You can go somewhere and they say that's our backup server. They're simply telling you that that server has been configured to run only backups. So when it comes to an application server, a regular server that we all know how to build, insofar as you install Nagios on it, that server becomes Nagios server. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now, Nagios is an application, correct?
Correct.
Our issue tonight is how will you troubleshoot any application? The first thing you have to understand is that every application that is installed have its own binary that is created, which means we all understand that there's a dedicated file system structure which is reserved for extra application installations. I mean, is that correct? If we have something to install on a server, which directory comes to mind first that we can use? Our directory structure, who can remember? That emanates from the root. There was something there that we said reserved for extra installations.
/up.
Correct, /up. So the first thing when it comes to application is, where was that application installed? Majority of the time is /up or /usr. So from there, you want to now start looking for directories that are named after that application. For example, if we install Nagios on /up and you go to /up, you'll definitely see something called /up/Nagios. So you start by troubleshooting, looking through that directory path of the application with related absolute path that ties to the application. Does that make sense? If you can be troubleshooting Nagios that were installed in /up and you cd to /var. Remember, we know that var has all logs, but for that application, var is not going to record every log because that's an application that runs on its own. Does that make sense? Now, Nagios may have up slash nagios/var, which means that's Nagios' own var, because Nagios also needs to record every activity. Does that make sense? So the route when it comes to troubleshooting application is, first of all, you need to know on which directory was that application installed. If it is /opt, okay, then I start looking for /opt and then followed by the application name. And then I can look for /var over there, /temp. And the most important thing is HTTP. Most of these applications have been accessible over the browser, just like Nagios. And when it comes to over the browser, the protocol is HTTP. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
The daemon is HTTPD. The protocol is HTTP. Hypertext Transmission Protocol, because that's how communication goes through it. Remember when we did repository, online repository, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So there's always a directory that access that you have a directory that captures every error when it comes to application, every access, which means you see something like nagios/access, nagios/error. So those are the kind of files that we direct you to look through to determine how that application, which issue is causing maybe disconnectivity. Because if you look through error logs, they will now tell you which IP address is trying to access, who is logging in from where, or which error is projected. Does that make sense? Are we communicating? Are you guys still here?
Yes, I'm here, Prof.
So it's important that when they talk about, just like you see here where it says, which log files will you check for authentication related messages? /var log. The same thing in an application. They may ask, which file will you check for access, number of people that access an application? Their response should be simple, depending on where that application was installed. For example, let's say /up, and let's say the application name is called web app. I'm going to check /up web app /access. So access will simply capture everybody that is logged into the application. Error will simply capture any error message that the application is generating. And var will simply capture every activity that's happening on that application. The issue will just be the different absolute path depending on where that application is installed. If that application was installed in /usr, then you're going to be looking for usr/webapp/var. That will be different from the var log that we all know. Make sense? So please digest these questions, and when we come next week, we'll need to, as I said, you guys need to start talking. We need to talk more. We have had a lot of theory, keeps adding. It seems like we're not going to end. So, but we need to practice how to have these conversations. There are a lot of good resumes out there. A lot of schools, a lot of people have finished. You need to bring out yourself out from that crowd. You need to distinguish yourself out from that crowd. And that's only by talking. Any question? We are running up for the night. As we said, interview prep is just 1 hour. And it's Sunday, so you guys are not too late to bed. Who is joining us at this time? Okay, it's to Uriah. Hello, any questions? If there are no questions, let's call it up for the night, and I'll be sending you guys this note. Kenko, can you drop me an email? Let me know the most recent one you're using now, so I can send this to you.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. If there are no more questions, concerns, good night, everyone, and see you guys next week. Yeah?
Okay.
Or on Wednesday. We're doing AWS on Wednesday, so you guys can still join.
Good night, Prof. Thank you.
Good night, Prof. Thank you.
Bye-bye.